Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another exciting adventure here at Of Duelists and Drunkards. I'm Mr. Panda.
And I'm Rockstar.
This is the podcast where there is a 2-for-1 special every Friday. In tonight's episode, in addition to all the bells and whistles, you can expect two major discussion topics. The first is we're going to be talking about cancel culture. Ha! Hooray! Thank you, Rockstar, for writing a stupendously awesome episode topic. And the second thing we're going to be talking about is an animated movie called Batman Bad Blood. So stay tuned for that later in the podcast. Before we get to that, though, I'm going to briefly mention our convention schedule. At the time that you see this podcast, I'll be on my way to Columbia, South Carolina for Bonsai Con. And the following week will be our final con of the year as far as we know. That will be DerpyCon in Morristown, New Jersey. So be sure to check out one of those two cons, one in the north, one in the south. Doesn't matter, you can come to one. And without further ado, let's head into current events. The first current event we have to cover is the passing away of Keiichiro Kimura, an animator with a very long and glorious history in the Japanese industry. He was working, up until very recently, working on the Berserk movies, the Golden Arc, Part 1 and 2. Next up is some more exciting news. We have a stop-motion animated feature coming from Guillermo del Toro about Pinocchio. I've heard rumors that's supposed to be very anti-fascist and deep and meaningful. So I'm waiting to see exactly what kind of spin he puts on the movie, because he has that history of kind of doing that. Like if you remember Pan's Labyrinth, I don't know if you've seen Pan's Labyrinth. Rockstar, of course, has. She can't get enough of the movie.
I prefer Shape of Water, just so you know.
You prefer The Shape of Water?
Yes.
So not the Espanol.
I liked Pan's Labyrinth, but
it has a classic Spanish ending.
Yes.
Sad.
Yes.
Now, it's not just Guillermo del Toro who's involved with this. We also have the Jim Henson Company is going to be involved, and Shadow Machine, which is known for, of all things, BoJack Horseman. None of these individuals or companies, to my knowledge, has been involved with stop-motion animation in the past. So it's going to be really interesting to see the final result. I assume they're working with someone with some experience. But
I want to know who's going to be handling the musical part of it, because
it's a musical?
It's a musical.
Oh, why?
Because
I don't need James and the Giant Peach 2.0. Good. Now, if you haven't heard about this, oh boy, are you in for a treat. Spyro the Dragon is coming back at last with an HD remake of the original series. And I'm all about this. I'm super psyched. I was playing this on my friend's PlayStation back in the day, and I saw the new graphics. I'm like, oh man, does that ever look gorgeous. No more polygons, relatively very close movement mechanics and all that good stuff. I don't think anything major has changed as far as the game is concerned, except the aesthetics. And that's something very exciting for me personally. So watch for Spyro Reignited, coming out who knows when, but hopefully very soon. Next up, of course, we love covering pushbacks, and Wonder Woman 1984 has been pushed back again to 2020. For what DC calls, what was it, Roxy?
The ever-changing competitive landscape, which just means we lost Batman and Superman. Now we have no idea what the hell we're going to do with ourselves.
If we put off the Wonder Woman movie, that will give us some time to figure out what to do. Also, we don't want to go up against Avengers 4.
Sad.
Now, of course, we published this story last week and immediately had to go out and get ready for a retraction, because as it turns out, that fan animation that we referred to last time for the Rick and Morty YouTuber has been restored. Turner Entertainment has withdrawn the complaint and has allowed the video to stay up now. Not only stayed up, but monetized, which, good for them. Maybe they realized, oh, well, you know what, this didn't really hurt anything. Let's just leave that alone. It's better to have the goodwill than the bad will of the fans, if you know what I mean.
I mean, it is the Rick and Morty fan base.
Yeah.
We talked about that last time.
What do you mean you took down a fan animation? And for our final piece of current events, I'm going to highlight some fun ridiculousness going on in the video game world. If you've heard of the new Spider-Man game for the PlayStation. You probably noticed it is a gorgeous piece of work, but there were a number of complaints that came up as the game was released, because in the preview, there were these really high-resolution digitized puddles.
Where have the puddles gone?
Everyone was apparently really excited about the puddles. And that resulted in what exactly, Rockstar?
Puddlegate!
Where have all the puddles gone? Into Sony's Puddles and Cream, a mouthful of puddles in every bite.
But of course, they couldn't just let it go. No. They put in a patch. They put in a patch, and now you can put in all the puddles you want in the game.
Spider-Man Unlimited Puddle Works. That sounds like a porn parody.
Oh God, no.
You're thinking it. That means it's a reality. Like Mr. Rogers said, you can make your dreams come true. I don't think he said that.
No, I don't think he said that either. And
I'm pretty sure it definitely wasn't in the context of porn parodies. But you know what? Mr. Panda says if you can think it, you can make it happen. You can make your ultimate porn parody come true. Can we move on to something else?
You're the one lingering on the situation.
Well, we've closed up current events, so now it's time to head into our first discussion topic. So tonight we're talking about cancel culture. And in order to kick things off, Rockstar is going to explain to you exactly what cancel culture is, what the definition is, what its implications are. Go for it.
So there are two real ways to look at cancel culture. One, we're talking about a cultural boycott, whereas they don't actually get banned from a project or a platform, but you just go on Twitter and go, I'm muting him, I'm boycotting him, you don't buy their products. So it's not real effective on the wallet for the most part. It's just they
mostly
cancel.
About exposure.
Right. Or it could also be used as a meme. Somebody say something you don't like, or I think they even use it as a meme.
Unfriended forever!
There was a meme going around about an espresso machine that wasn't working right, and they said they had canceled the espresso machine. But then there's the more serious implication, where they get canceled and taken off projects. Any current projects, anything on air even, just completely taken off the project. So, for instance, the most recent example of that would be Megyn Kelly getting kicked off of NBC. I don't know if you have listened to the news lately, Panda, about that.
Oh, I've heard many things about that.
So, the reason she got kicked off of NBC was some comments she made about blackface and
which
Halloween.
We're not going to talk about today.
No, we're not. I just want people to know that what the reason was. And of course, if you pay attention to anything NBC when it comes to Megyn Kelly, this is not her only controversial statement. She's made several. It's just, it seems this one was, I don't know, the final straw on camel's back.
Especially at this particular station, that's for sure. And it's not just Megyn Kelly. A lot of the examples that we're going to be highlighting here, it's all about response to something that's perceived as a negative comment or negative action, frequently on social media or gaffes while they're on air. Megyn Kelly's not the only newsy type to fall into that bracket of getting censored. Not like censorship, but rather like being chastised for making a gaffe. Oh, you had an earlier example as well with, what's his name, Bill Maher?
Bill O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly, too. But Bill Maher said something
really
similar.
I was going to say, well, Bill, that's what he does.
Yes.
Like, his whole job is to say controversial shit all the time.
Now, of course, Megyn Kelly's not the only newsy type that we could point to as an example of this. We also had examples like Bill Maher and comments that he made that got him in a lot of trouble, though in the end he didn't get canceled. But basically in all these examples that we're going across, we're dealing with individuals who either say something or they comment, whether it be part of their project, outside of their project on social media, or in some cases, not even within recent memory. Sometimes it's a long time ago that things get pulled up and aired out and get people in a lot of trouble.
Well, jumping right off of that, the very next example would be like Roseanne Barr.
Oh boy.
And her controversial tweets about, I think all I have to say is controversial tweets, and everybody knows what we're talking about.
I think this is relevant enough for most people to understand.
But of course, then she got kicked off of her reboot, and then didn't they essentially reboot it again and killed her character off?
I mean, something like that. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I never watched the show. So, it's beyond me, but they did write her character off. And then there's also supposed to be like a spin-off or something. I don't know what the status of that is. But yeah, the focal point, the center of this project was removed from the project over this the tweeting.
Right. But of course, like you said, it doesn't always have to be in recent memory. For instance, James Gunn had controversial tweets from 10 years ago that got brought up. And of course, he gets taken off of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Which we still don't know what... That's a whole debacle in itself, because you have half the cast not wanting to work unless it's with James Gunn. And that brings up a whole topic of, are people even allowed to change? If you're going to bring up stuff from 10 years ago, whereas in Roseanne Barr, it's like, yeah, it's recent, and okay, you want to kick her off now, but what if she straightens up and flies right?
Yeah, and I mean, like, he's not the only example, but he's definitely one of the most prominent examples of someone having some skeletons in the closet that aren't so kosher, and then if someone digs them back up, it's enough to scare off the big corporations who are like shying away from controversy to the 10th degree. Mm-hmm. They just want nothing to do with it. And in some cases, such as in James Gunn, I think we can tack that up to being perhaps an overcompensation, because now they've developed a new set of problems for themselves when it comes to the production of the newest movies.
An extreme complication. But speaking about celebrities who were canceled, then you have some skeletons that I don't know if you can be redeemed from, like Kevin Spacey, with his sexual harassment allegations under his wing, and then getting kicked off of House of Cards, and I believe another movie too. He got kicked off of several projects. It's almost like Hollywood decided to blacklist him after that.
Well, I mean, there's only so much that you can make up for, and I mean, I think there is a distinction there to be made between rhetorical gaffes, saying things wrong, and actually committing crimes, which is the burden upon which Mr. Kevin Spacey is resting, which we won't get into too much, but obviously everyone's familiar with I hope everyone's familiar with the allegations surrounding Kevin Spacey, both historically and even perhaps the most damning part is it was even on the set of his big project, House of Cards, which was probably the final nail in the coffin. It's like, I mean, it's one thing to say that there was potential misconduct 13 or plus years ago, but it's like, if it's an ongoing issue and we can like dig it up right now, there's still criminal proceedings pending against him at this point. Like, you can't come back from that. Right.
Not to mention that he kind of also offended the LGBT community right after it happened, too.
Oh, Kevin. Kevin.
It was at that point the LGBT community realized there is a wrong way to come out of the closet.
And even right here on YouTube, we have examples of the cancel culture coming into play. We got PewDiePie. Good old PewDiePie.
Oh, PewDiePie and his anti-Semitic jokes. Whether you take it as, okay, it was offensive or not, YouTube still decided, there goes your YouTube Red. I believe they took away his AdSense or something. I know his advertisement was, like, tanked. It still is. I mean, half his videos get demonetized no matter what he does. But
biggest YouTuber on YouTube, and still feeling the fallout from one joke that was... I mean, I'm not sure how you all feel about it, but I mean, we have clear and convincing evidence that at minimum it was taken out of context and was used in a way that wasn't its original intention. So, of course, that wasn't the only reason he got in trouble either.
No. He was in a continuing flight of controversies.
Good job, Pewds.
And the one thing that it's like, not only did PewDiePie get canceled, but even the two guys on Fiverr ended up getting banned from Fiverr as well. And that was a whole thing. So cancel culture even goes down to people who aren't even celebrities getting canceled as well. But those are all examples of when cancel culture would be what you call successful. There's a lot of times where people call for a cancellation that doesn't happen. Like, if we're going to continue on the thread of YouTube, we've got Logan Paul.
I think PewDiePie even mentioned that. Like, it was like, oh, where's my series, YouTube?
So it's
Logan Paul gets his movie. Where's my series, YouTube?
Which is horrible, because if I remember correctly, PewDiePie mentioned, Scared to PewDiePie Season 2 actually is all filmed. It just, they won't release the film. But apparently Logan Paul finished a movie and now has released it. After we were told that he was canceled from that. Now, to be fair, I believe Jake Paul did actually get, canned from Disney because of his controversial issues. But it seems that his older brother Logan...
Disney seems to be the one company consistently saying, nope, ban everybody. We got hundreds of billions of dollars in portfolios. We can literally jettison the merest hint of a controversy and not break a sweat.
And, what's horrible is this even goes into, like, the musical world. Do you remember the Spotify issue?
No.
So, the Spotify issue, they decided that they were going to take off any controversial artists, and I believe the first two affected were XXXTentacion and R. Kelly. Both for different reasons. XXXTentacion had domestic abuse charges against him, and R. Kelly for his myriad of issues.
To quote Dave Chappelle.
Close your eyes, show me your face. I'm gonna piss on it.
Anyways, moving on. So, Spotify got a lot of backlash from that particular change in policy, if you will. And, of course, you can find them on Spotify now. Because they realize, well, we shouldn't be essentially censoring their artists on their platform.
So not only do we have companies making a top-down decision about canceling people or reducing what they get out of their projects. In some cases, it's a little more popular. Now, we already referred back to the real world examples of cancel culture, less about the movies, less about YouTube. But what we want to get into now is how popular demand to cancel someone affects things. So,
for instance, we found out that Johnny Depp was going to be Grindelwald as a Potterverse. I noticed a lot of people in the Harry Potter fandom got very angry because of what essentially we know about Johnny Depp going through his messy divorce. There's allegations on both sides of domestic abuse and physical, verbal abuse because of drunken escapades and just a very toxic relationship.
And this, of course, culminated in a Twitter fight between J.K. Rowling and a bunch of the hive mind of Twitter about trying to get a recast done. Which, for the most part, I think she ignored it first, but then didn't she follow up with something as well?
Yeah, she finally followed up after enough dust had been pulled up, and she basically said, Johnny Depp's a very good friend of mine, and I personally know certain things that the public wouldn't know about the messy divorce, and the problem here is that there are issues on both sides of the divorce, and I trust him to do a very good job with Grindelwald, and I hope people would respect my decision on who I want to cast in that particular light. But then again, I guess Rowling hasn't been exactly free from controversy lately for multiple reasons.
Yes, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, that is true. There's not a huge cancel culture around that, just mostly around Johnny Depp, which I think has died down, but I pretty much tuned out after a while.
Mean, the movie's made, so what do you got to do at this point?
Right. And when it comes down to people causing a fuss about people being removed from events and or projects, you had the whole change the Channel Awesome debacle because of, I will call them ex-associates.
And this one hits really close to home for a lot of people on YouTube because Channel Awesome and its associates date back from the old days. Mm-hmm. Like elephant video era of YouTube. Someone will get that. And of course, when it came to Channel Awesome, the issue was a number of creators who were associated with it came out talking about negative experiences with the company, with some of the managing people, including the Walker brothers, and that led to a huge exodus of people who formerly weren't necessarily working for Channel Awesome per se, but were their special arrangement was just like a content aggregator in many cases. Right. So they just were tied to a lot of YouTube channels. Mm-hmm. And of course, then there was the mass exodus and everyone left. And then we ended up with what we call the Channel Larry moment. And even we had a little bit of fun with that, with a couple different quick edit videos.
And yeah, we had our fun, but at the end of the day, it was actually very upsetting to see that once everybody left essentially the association that they had, people still called for a cancellation or a boycott of the channel. And if I may interject my personal feelings on the matter, it just felt like...
it's the podcast. What else are you going to do?
It just felt like they wanted something that the channel can't give. They've already done everything they could. A lot of this happened way in the past. It just felt like they wanted to see some men just wanted to watch the channel burn. And I didn't think that was very fair. I just didn't think that was fair.
Winner of the Channel Awesome Hunger Games.
And it got to the point where people were asking Kineticon on their Facebook to cancel them from the event, where I believe they finally had to respond and said, hey guys, we have a contract, a legally binding contract.
Plus, Doug was on the cover of the booklet,
and all the badges, and the one thing that was nice to see was at least while they were at con, I didn't see people throw much of a fuss. It just felt like because people were behind a computer screen, it was so much easier to throw up a fuss. But once people were face to face with the Walkers and the rest of Channel Awesome, I didn't see anybody there was not a protest of change the channel.
Well, I feel like that plays into a lot of these, because I feel like a decent percentage of people who tend to complain about these things don't watch the projects that they're talking about. Mm-hmm. I'm not even just talking about the newsy people. I'm talking about in general. It's pretty sure a lot of people who complain about PewDiePie never watched a PewDiePie video in their lives. Right. I'm pretty sure that people who were complaining about Channel Awesome probably had tuned out at that point. Maybe they were followers of the people who were expatriates of Channel Awesome. But I doubt that they were still watching Channel Awesome videos at the time. I know that there were people who were fans who were concerned about the allegations that came out and all the information that came out. But even in the case of Channel Awesome, I feel like there was still a significant group that just had nothing to do with the content anymore. When you add that level of separation behind the computer screen, we see it in other contexts too. I think there was, I feel like back when 4chan was first a thing, I said it. I said the name. I feel like when E-Bomb's World was first a thing, there were even some academics who talked about just how important anonymity can be for frankness, but of course it can also drive you to just act differently. It you don't feel as empathetic towards people when you're behind a computer screen, and I think that goes even in cases where anger is potentially justified. I mean, you're still a certain degree of separation away from people who actually care about the content that's being impacted by either the cancellation decision from up top or from the negative feedback that's received from the general public.
So that actually was going to lead into the question of why do we call for cancellations? Why do we do it? Is it a sense of moral justice that we're feeling, or is it a sense of, well, this is going to sound wrong, but I'm going to say it anyways. Slightly SJW, so I'm going to jump on the bandwagon. Because that's what it
Demonetized!
Panda's lost it!
No, I mean, actually, I completely agree with you. But it's just, welcome to YouTube, everybody. Welcome to Duelists Drunkards, where we're going to use the term SJW. Next week, anti-vaxxers. No, never. Literally, I'm never talking about that. Just no.
I have my opinions on it.
Yeah, can we not? Okay, I'm just going to be like, no. That's a hard no for me, all right? I'm using my safe word.
See, I think my issue is there's certain things that I feel you can bounce back from. Like, Philip DeFranco. Philip DeFranco talks a lot about his controversial past.
True.
When he's talked about things that now he looks back and he cringes because he wasn't the best person he possibly could be. And unless you are really going to get angry over old videos he's done, for the most part, his audience likes him and accepts that, okay, he did some controversial things in the past, he's moved on, and he's become a better person from it. But it seems like we also hold that it's also a double-edged sword where some people are held to just a higher standard regardless of what they say or how they apologize or if they show that they've changed with their actions. For instance, I feel James Gunn has done nothing of recent memory to call for a cancellation. And if he would have deleted those tweets,
probably no one would have even noticed.
Or cared, to be honest. I honestly feel like no one would care, but it's the internet, and of course now they're plastered everywhere, so even if he's deleted them by now...
Well, I think there's a couple different things that go into it. First of all, I think there's a very big tendency... I feel like someone else described this too. Enjoying watching the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, watching someone get taken down. Triggers all sorts of fun little chemicals in our minds. So, of course, people want to jump on that bandwagon. We want to see people get what they deserve, quote unquote, even if it may or may not be deserved. It really kind of depends on the context there. In other situations, I think it also has to do, we might as well just come out and say it. I think there's definitely a certain cultural bias, let's call it that. Cultural bias, perhaps political bias, depending on the context, where someone that you don't like, whether you don't like what they do, whether you don't like their politics, whatever, if they represent something that you distinctly dislike, of course you're going to revel in their mistakes. Of course you're going to revel in the fact that in the past they sucked. I mean, to connect us to politics just for a minute, to give you an example of what I'm talking about, it's like, oh yeah, Hillary Clinton commenting about dodging sniper fire. Yeah, didn't happen. Okay, everyone's going to freak out about it because she said that, what was it, 15... Man, it was 20 years after the fact. Yeah, Okay, maybe she misremembered it, guys. Come on. And I mean, more recently, you have things like James Gunn. It's like, these tweets are 10 years old. Okay, so, I don't like James Gunn, or I don't like the way he writes movies. I think that Guardians of the Galaxy was crap. So I'm going to latch on to this one thing that he did to try to prevent him from making more. I'm waiting for something like that to happen to Rebecca Sugar, to be perfectly honest.
It also...
Steven Universe! Now we just got to dig up tweets from 20 years ago when she was making fan art porn in her office while working on Adventure Time. Which, funny enough, I believe that actually was a thing. I don't think anyone complained about it.
But see, then you have certain things where it bothers me, where it's like, for instance, Logan Paul. His I don't care about his content. And yet, when YouTube did nothing with the Suicide Forest video, it felt like hypocrisy.
Well,
you're gonna demonetize. You're gonna jump on immediate action when it comes to someone like PewDiePie. But Logan Paul still gets basically everything he wants out of YouTube, and is basically still promoted by them. In fact, I think the only event that's actually banned him was VidCon for his actions. I mean, I'm not calling for the ban of his channel. I don't believe YouTube should do that kind of things. Alex Jones.
Oh boy. Oh, let's just... I have a good idea. Let's not talk about that. I think that's a top drawer idea. I think I should get a Nobel Peace Prize for that idea. I think
skirting the line of controversy.
I feel like part of the problem is it definitely depends on who you are. That's part of it. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, I think Logan Paul, for example, probably did make a lot of money for YouTube, and that probably helped in the long run. And to be perfectly honest, I am not confident that had there not been an immediate backlash from outside of his audience, if no one else had ever seen it but his audience, I'm not confident that YouTube would have pulled that video. They didn't pull it in general.
No, they didn't. It was Logan Paul who finally deleted it after it was on trending.
Yeah. Like the ever nebulous rules of the trending line. But I think it also depends on what it really is. And this is the question I asked myself too when that controversy first broke. I asked myself, how bad is this really? And I get it. I completely get it. I completely understand why this was a big lapse in judgment. But I really had to ask myself, how bad is what he did within the context of everything else that people do? And I think that a lot of us have these internalized biases about what is worse compared to something else. Whether it be the particular words you say, whether it be the type of actions you're accused of. I mean, we see this on the other side of the spectrum too, where it's like, oh, well, a sexual assault allegation isn't necessarily the end of your career because we're all biased against that. We don't believe victims. And in the case of Logan Paul, I was thinking about, I think in the grand scheme of things, that what he did is not currently in the red zone of things you can't do. Things that make you the bad guy. And I mean, it's not just that his fan base continues to be loyal to him, but he didn't say the dreaded words, if you know what I mean. I mean, we discussed when this was first a thing, this isn't the only thing that Logan Paul did. And I'm sorry, I don't want to make this all about Logan Paul. Well, we've talked endlessly. Everyone's talked endlessly about the Pauls in general. But it does seem to be the most relatable example for this particular audience of ours. So, in the wake of that new Shane Dawson series, which is now over, I would probably say that even that has also added additional dimensions to making Logan Paul not look very good in the light, and yet his career persists. So really, I think it really does come down to, as far as the effectiveness of these kind of popular actions and how long it sticks with you, what are they really being accused of? How bad is it? I feel like that's also a good example to refer back to Channel Awesome. I feel like that ire has died down a lot, probably because a lot of people kind of got what they wanted out of it. Mm-hmm. In terms of, a lot of people left the channel. All right, it feels like we accomplished something. Good job, everyone. Let's go home. It's kind of hard to keep up a call out like that for a very extended period. I can relate to my own personal experience. In fact, back when I was more activistly minded, and I was connected to the anti-Scientology movement with E-Bombs World back in the day. And I can guarantee you, after about the first year, that just tapered off a lot, even though, what's your measurement of success? And I think that the measurement of success is directly correlative to what they did. How bad were they? What did they do?
Right, because I always take issue when people are like, well, it's based off of what they've said. If it's a racist tweet, if it's an offensive joke, or whatever you want to call it, I can disagree with people's usage of their words. I can disagree with, I think that's racist, but I don't want to essentially go then and burn their career down. Because I think there's a way you can come back from that. I think you can learn to be better. And I think if we continue to villainize people, well, there's going to be no incentive to want to get better. There is no incentive. Or there is more of an incentive to just fake it, and hold racist thoughts in your heart and mind anyways. It doesn't really change people. It doesn't legitimately do any good in the world to villainize and go down and after people and tear down their projects when it's something so basic as, well, I fucked up and said something weird in the tweet. Whereas when you're talking about something as serious as a crime, whether in the past or in the future, you always have that issue, especially with, I hate to bring him up, but Bill Cosby had a lot of accusers.
We're supposed to keep this about media.
Well, technically it was about media.
Oh,
he was
man.
getting lambasted at his comedy shows for the longest time. And, well...
This is the fidget spinner of safe words. When the fidget spinner is spinning, we stop talking about his barbecue sauce.
I only meant to bring him up because of the amount of accusers. There is a
What do you even do at that point? Like, I don't care.
There's a domino effect. Clearly there was a problem. It was a serial problem and no one did anything about it for years. And now you can say what you want about whether or not he's paying the price. But he got the book thrown at him. Kevin Spacey was ongoing, and where is he now?
Careerless and possibly facing prison. I guess it depends on what the prosecutors come up with.
And I think in those cases, those are those are deserved. If you have evidence and, you find that, yes, they are guilty of what they're saying, then cancel culture, I think in that case might work because there might not be reform for somebody like that. Whereas like a racist tweet, you change the heart, you honeypot. And now that I'm saying it, I feel like I'm going to be the next Boogie 2988. I'm going to say something that's going to offend so many people. They're going to take what I said out of context. And I feel so bad for him because he always says something with good intention and it always comes out wrong. And I feel like what I just said did that.
Welcome to YouTube. Welcome to Papa's house.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying to summarize that I think people can come back from certain actions. Not every action, by all means, you have to judge that, I guess, for yourself if you really want to. But I think certain actions can be redeemed, and if we villainize people to the point that they don't want to change, then there's no incentive to change.
I think part of this was reflected in South Park's new marketing campaign for its newest season, the whole cancel South Park. Is cancel culture the idea that people can punish bad behavior by wrecking projects or canceling projects or demonetizing people? Is it useful? Are we actually serving a positive purpose through that? And I know you already kind of touched on this, but especially because of how widespread it's become. Like, the most recent example that we gave, Megyn Kelly, it's like, I mean, these are people that at one point it would have been how high up the ladder are we going to go with people who are going to fall from grace? People who are operating their own little insulated world and essentially on the top of their game, but it's still touching them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like with Channel Awesome, it also shows that it doesn't matter if you're not like, I'm trying to think of a good example of somebody, you're not an A-lister and you can still fall from grace. Boogie 2988 shows that too, with all of his myriad of controversies this year. And he hasn't technically fallen from grace, but I mean, every other week I feel like I go on Twitter and he's dealing with another smattering of hate comments and death threats again.
It feels like the next wave of popular YouTubers is going to be all about hating other popular YouTubers. I'm looking at you, Keemstar.
And even Shane's kind of feeling the effects of it because of his documentary with the Pauls. His Reddit, his subreddit is dumpster trash right now because of how many people despised the Jake Paul docuseries.
Feels weird, though, because like I was on there when I finished it, and the comments section was actually pretty clean, which I thought was weird.
Depends on what post. There are some posts
I guess
that are
they're
positive.
filtered.
There are some posts that are actually nice, but when you get to the ones that talk about how awful they felt the series was.
Do you have thoughts or opinions about the cancel culture and the trends that it embodies? Feel free to leave a comment below. We know you won't, but we're going to invite you to do it anyway.
I mean, I guess they could always go to the subreddit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go to the subreddit. Yeah, why not?
Subreddit.
I mean, we'll read it if you post there, but you're not going to post there. You're far more likely to just click that like and subscribe button. Yeah, right.
Or go yell at us at our fan
No, please don't do that. Why would you even suggest that? I don't want to be doing a panel and then all of a sudden someone's like, well, you said this on the podcast. I didn't say it.
I didn't say it at a panel. Jesus Lord, no.
I didn't say that. Rockstar did.
I said the fan lounge on Facebook.
Oh, boy.
Please
you can join the fan lounge on Facebook, too. You'll get access to special perks and stuff.
Please don't harass us at our panels. We want to entertain you when we're at cons.
I think at this point we've wrapped up the discussion, so it's time to introduce a new segment here at Of Duelists and Drunkards.
Yay!
This new segment, Why Do I Own This?, is going to be diving into my personal collection of junk. I'm going to be pulling it up, giving you my best explanation as to what it is. Sometimes I'll actually know. Other times, good luck. Do an image reverse search and see if you can figure it out for me. And I'll try to give you the best explanation as to why I own it as well. This first week is this little nonsense. This is a Kubrick set from Japan. Kubrick is marketed essentially exclusively in Japan as a sort of a Lego stand-in. Not quite, but sort of. Very similar resemblance. They come in at different size markings. They have the 100%, the 400%, and I think the 1000%. This, I think, is the standard 100%. This is officially licensed by Gainax and is an Evangelion set featuring the second angel.
The second angel. And he's what? Just all yellow?
Well, yeah. Haven't you? You've seen the show.
Well, yes, I've seen the show.
The only time we see Adam is super glowy and then embryonic form. Packaged with Adam is all our favorite characters: Gendo and his wife Yui, and of course the chairman of Sele, and the big old TV screen, the #1 Sele sound only. I don't know why they packaged that in, but they did. Kubrick box are famous for doing blind box packaging, where basically you typically just buy it, open it, and then the idea is you swap figurines with other people to complete your collection on a set. I don't know much about the set for this one in particular, but the reason I own it is because it was like $2 at a flea market, the Otaku flea market. I think it was at Ichiban Con. It must have been last year. I've had it for a little while now.
I love those.
Some assembly
markets.
required.
Otaku flea markets are the best.
Otaku flea markets are the best, and I mean, like, Medicom, which makes this. I was reading about it prior to the beginning of this show, and what's really interesting is that there's a lot of their collectibles that aren't even sold, and that's part of their whole Japan-centric marketing. Like, some of them were given out as just promotional items. So, like, they did a Master Chief figurine that you could only get by buying Halo 2. And there was a big movie that came out. I can't remember what it was, but they had a figurine of the main character. Not available for sale. You can only do it by buying advanced tickets to a Japanese cinema.
Wow.
So, yeah, Kubrick is kind of like a mixture of Lego and the standard Japanese marketing perspective of Japan only. They will only ship to a Japanese address from their web store. Very frustrating for collectors. So, I guess I got a little piece of rarity here, in addition to my absolute obsession with Evangelion. Now I just need to find out if they have an Asuka and Rei figurine.
Yeah, if you can tell. If you can't tell.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I own them. Having briefly discussed my obsession with the Evangelion franchise, we're going to roll right into our break. We'll be back very shortly.
Hey Panda, what's up?
Hello.
I got a new body wash for you to try.
Oh?
Fist of the North Star.
Oh my God!
Welcome back, everyone, to tonight's episode. We're going to roll right into yet another new segment that we're introducing here at Of Duelists and Drunkards. And to kick off this segment, I have something that I would like to complain about.
Of course.
I'm going to talk to you tonight about a product that threatens our way of life. I'm going to talk to you about LaCroix. LaCroix is an insult to palates both sophisticated and basic. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, LaCroix is what you get when you smell a fruit across the street and then try to can that as a concept. That is what you get with LaCroix. You know how I discovered LaCroix? I discovered the secret formula to this piece of shit. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, I was at Kineticon, and I poured myself some orange juice. Promptly decided I did not want that orange juice, and poured it out. And I got water instead. And I got down and sat at my table. And I drank my water and realized that's what LaCroix tastes like. And this, we're not even talking about basic things. Like, there's all sorts of, like, bubbly, fruit-infused water stuff that's out there now. LaCroix takes it a step further. They're not just competing with Polar and those other generic brands with giving you fruit essence in the water, you know, stuff that actually has flavor. No, LaCroix doesn't have flavor. Okay? Well, and to top it all off, they come up with these weird combinations that are supposed to somehow impress you and make up for the fact that, oh yeah, there is no flavor, but if we put a lot of words on here, people will buy it. This is frickin' blackberry cucumber. How that makes any relevant combination, I'll never frickin' know. What is this? Like, what is in my mouth? It's like if you know those weird hotels, those fancy hotels that put cucumbers in the big water vat and you pour that out. Well, just imagine that they ran through a full vat of that, and then instead of refilling it, they poured another big batch of water in on the same cucumbers. And then they did it again. And then they take the ice that's at the bottom of that jug, and they pull it out, and they let that melt in the sun for a bit, and then you drink that. That's what that tastes like. I had a much better version of this than I did at Kineticon, but that's because there was some immediacy to my disgust with this thing. There's nothing BlackBerry about it. Like, there's not... What am I supposed to get? Where's the BlackBerry here?
Should I go in the other room and scream it for you?
So, what we're going to do here is, like, I'll have Rockstar go out into the other room, go out into the hall, and if you shout BlackBerry at me, that's what LaCroix tastes like. Like someone in the other room shouting the flavor at me. It's just... You try this!
I drink that. You got this out of my cupboard, remember? I drink this.
I mean, for God's sakes, if you believe some people's words about this is going to outlast the cockroach. Because, of course, it's cockroach-proof. LaCroix is an offense against civilization. This is like when we're in the future, far, far in the future, and the Earth is a toxic wasteland due to global warming and nuclear radiation and fallout and all that good stuff. Like... And when aliens come and do archaeological work on us instead of the dinosaurs, and they discover the pits of what we ate, they'll metabolize something. They'll come up with an idea of what the fruits tasted like, and the fossilized remnants of blackberries. That's what they'll come up with. That's what they'll think blackberries taste like. And man, that is a very sad idea in my mind. All right, I'm done talking about LaCroix. Let's move on to our next segment. And to cap off our episode for tonight, we're going to talk about a movie, Batman Bad Blood, which you can currently watch on Netflix. Aren't you all excited about that? Rockstar is the one who picked this one, so I'll let her explain the basic plot premise. Advanced spoiler award. We're not. It's a really short movie, so go ahead, pause this, go watch it, come back. You done? All right. Rockstar, go ahead and explain the premise here for those who are too lazy or don't want to go watch it.
I am upset I even chose this as
It was your choice. I wanted to watch Mary and the Witch's Flower, and you were like, no, let's watch the Batman movie. I was like, okay.
I really just wanted to watch a Batman movie. Well...
We could have watched Batman Ninja. But no. Had to watch Bad Blood. So what's going on in this movie?
Well, it starts off with, like, Batman fighting off these villains with it's Batwoman, isn't it? Batwoman,
yeah.
And, it blows up. He saves her. Everyone thinks he's dead for a little while, so then Nightwing takes the mantle of Batman so that no one knows he's gone, with young Damian as Robin. Essentially, intrigue happens. Everyone's trying to figure out what happened with Batman. You have Nightwing finding out about Batwoman, finding out her alias. Then you have Lucius's son wanting to join the fight with Batman. So he becomes... he becomes Batwing.
Of course he does. Batwing.
So original. And the central plot of it all is, it seems that, Talia al Ghul has this evil mastermind thing of hypnotizing the world using Mad Hatter's technology. And she's already used it to create clones of Damian who don't feel emotion or attachment and is the perfect assassin.
It has a mommy complex, too.
We'll talk about the flaws with that. And she is trying to, as we find out, she's trying to use Bruce as her own personal weapon.
And sperm bank. I mean, when the loving's good.
Oh. And it culminates with what they think is rescuing Batman, but isn't because it's all part of the plan. That old cliche.
Good.
And he's hypnotized to take over, I forget what kind of summit or press release it was.
Doesn't matter.
I don't
World
even
leaders,
care.
vice presidents, scientists, something.
And he has them all under a hypnotized loop, and then there's some sort of fight scene, and
all the Bat family is there. Hooray!
It's a very lackluster.
I mean, I thought it was fine. I think that if you don't have any context for some of the characters, it doesn't really make sense. Like, none of the character motivations stand out.
No.
I think
even if you are a fan of the comics and you know Talia al Ghul and you know Damian, none of it makes sense anyway.
Now, wait a second. Now, I don't read the comics.
Yeah.
It made sense to me because I've seen the movies, the Zack's... Oh, for God's sake.
Not Zack Snyder.
Chris Nolan.
Yeah.
I mean, Zack Snyder was kind of involved. Chris Nolan series. The Dark Knight trilogy. All that. Yeah, I knew who character was. Yeah, I got an idea of what her... I was like, oh, yeah, okay, so you're, like, totally on about how, like, Ra's al Ghul was, like, kind of better than Talia. Oh, okay, well, that's weird to say, but okay. Yeah, I get it. Okay. But, I mean, like, there was nothing, like, stand out about the film. If anything, it felt like almost a slight letdown when we found out that, oh yeah, it's a clone, and the clone, which is like the best part, like isn't there at the end. Let's just say that because mommy complex.
Well, for me, knowing the characters didn't help the situation. Just I know I've read different versions of the character of Talia. I've played through several games that talked about her. And just this whole version of her just is off. Maybe it's because they're trying to say that she is the head of the League of the Assassins, so now she doesn't have any, like, emotion anymore, and that's what she expects of her soldiers, which is kind of what I was getting at, but
what about her love?
No, I'm sorry, the whole sperm bank...
Roxy, she wants the B. B is for bat.
Oh, God. That whole...
A is for Alfred. B is for bats. I love that video.
There's not really much to say other than I did not enjoy this. I didn't have a favorite character. I didn't enjoy the plot.
I mean, I thought it was okay. It just was like meh. It was like, okay, yeah, that was cool. I watched that once. I'm done. I don't need to see that again.
I wish I hadn't seen it.
I mean, that seems a little harsh to me. Like, I watched the, what was it? Dark Knight Rises?
Yeah.
Which was the animated film that's kind of in the same universe as some of the other stuff. I don't know. Where Batman's, like, super old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Though I think that takes place in, like, an alternate timeline. Where, like, Superman is the lapdog and all that. That was actually really good. And in fact, I think the reason I was I think the reason I didn't like, part of the reason I didn't like it was because up until I'd seen this, all the DC animated movies I had seen had been pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, not just good as a comic book animated movie, like just this is really cool. So
I even enjoyed that really weird one, Flashpoint.
Oh yeah, that is DC. What am I thinking of? I'm an idiot. Yeah.
Where they have the Wonder Woman and Aquaman dating situation. Even
Lover's
that weird...
quarrel leads to the end of the world.
Even that weird situation I was okay with. But I just don't know what it was about Bat Blood that I didn't enjoy. It almost even felt at times that they were trying to shove too many characters in. And just hoping you had enough knowledge of Batman. And, I mean, I have the knowledge of Batman to understand who the characters were. But it just felt like arbitrary, whoever they stuck in there. Mad Hatter was a really weird choice. He's rarely used as a villain. And, I don't know, the whole head exploding scene... spoiler alert, he gets his head literally blown off his body. I don't know. I just felt like the plot went nowhere.
Well,
what was the whole point of it?
Well, I mean, for all I know, it could be setting up for another one. That wouldn't surprise me. Though,
that was a really bad setup.
Well, Talia apparently dies at the end or something. But, who the hell knows, right? I mean, like, don't even get me started on about weird continuity issues like in the Batman trilogy from Chris Nolan's. Like, yeah, there's literally no way he could have ejected in the time frame that we're given and survived the blast. So whatever, man. But I was actually curious because we did a joint review of The Killing Joke back in the day in written form, which you can incidentally still find on the Manly Battleships Facebook page in the notes section. How would you compare this in terms of favorability with how we viewed The Killing Joke? I know that I was a slightly edge higher than you on that, but putting it in context of other animated movies from DC that you've seen besides Flashpoint Paradox.
I would rate The Killing Joke much higher than Bad Blood.
Even though you had problems with the opening?
Even though I had problems with the opening part of it, and even though I had my issues with that, I think even with all of its flaws, The Killing Joke is 10 times better than Bad Blood. It actually has a coherent plot, even if I didn't enjoy the addition of the intro.
Well, rehash that a little. I mean, I know you didn't like the entirety of the first part, which was completely added on. For those of you who haven't seen the animated version, the original Killing Joke comic, they actually do a very faithful.
Oh yeah, and when you actually get to
scene by scene.
Mm-hmm, when you actually get to the comic part of it, that is extremely faithful. But
I argue almost to the detriment of the animated version. Actually, I actually think that there were elements that they could have tweaked a little bit, and I think that's what they were trying to do by tacking on that opening portion of the movie. And I didn't think it was great writing, but I think that added something that I always felt was missing from the original comic, which is we don't have a context in the Killing Joke comic for why it's this thing that really kind of... The whole reason the Killing Joke was so interesting was because it made it extremely ambiguous. Up until this point, Batman would never have killed anybody. But it's meant to be super ambiguous at the end whether or not that might have finally happened. And it's not like anyone's going to stop him. But why? Why? Well, I go back and reread the comic sometimes, even when we were doing this review, and I was asking myself, yeah, why is it this one thing that really gets to him? I mean, you could chalk it up to the context of it being his family kind of thing, but I mean, there's other continuities where people are killed, and that's a different reaction. And I know that every creator in the comics has their own kind of take on how Batman deals with that. But the thing that kind of bothered me was, I don't feel like the Joker did something that was so out of character that Batman would snap.
See, I see it differently, because it's not just the fact that he shot Barbara and then kidnapped Gordon. It's the mental anguish that he put Gordon through. It's one thing to brag about, hey, I shot her and this and that, and I always thought, I don't know about anyone else, I always had sexual assault implied when it comes to Barbara.
Oh, definitely.
And then so not only is he saying to Gordon, hey, I shot your daughter, but he's showing him pictures of the assault.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's actually, I believe at least several people think it's heavily implied that Gordon's also sexually assaulted. Beyond the humiliation stuff, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's not like the end of the story. And I completely agree with you. But what I'm saying is...
I think it's just why, he's thinking, why would you take it this far? The Joker is clearly trying to trigger a reaction out of Batman. And I think I think the straw on the camel's back that night is basically, you know, the whole it only takes one bad day to fall, and he thought Gordon might have, you know, how is Gordon staying so strong when it really should have broken him? And Batman's the only one who can do something about it, because he knows the Joker's going to break back out of jail. Joker's not going to stay in jail.
Yeah, but again, I'm not arguing with you on this point. What I'm saying is that from like a story writing perspective, the opening part of the Killing Joke animated movie gives us a context where it's not just Joker demonstrating his perpetual wanton violence, his perpetual need to justify his own existence by conflict with Batman. It's personal. And in the context of the animated movie which I'm told that in other continuities, he and Barbara have a thing going on sometimes.
Yeah, and it's always weird.
Of course, it's always... I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm merely indicating that within the context of the story as it's written, I think that him and Barbara being involved makes more sense with how ambiguous it is at the end of the story. Because it's not personal unless you do that. It's not a personal attack on Batman.
I disagree, because
it's so hard. That's the other thing, though. Because for me, it's like that's one of the challenges Joker has all the time. Is the times where like it's the most dire is when he can make it personal for Batman. And I don't think that he makes it personal for Batman in the way the story is originally chalked up.
See, I disagree completely, because I had an issue with the whole Batman and Barbara romance, specifically because it felt like they were doing the whole cliche put the woman in the refrigerator thing. And I hate that. I hate that. Why couldn't it have been that it was just that Barbara was not just like a mentor, but like a daughter to him? Why did it have to go there? It could have still been personal without a sexual relationship. That's my problem. And that's where I always saw it, as it was already personal. It's his colleague, it's his friend, it is somebody that he mentored and took out in the streets. And if it wasn't for him taking her out on the streets and teaching her how to be Batgirl, would she have been in that same situation? He put her in danger.
But then you also have comparative storylines where like people like Jason Todd literally get beaten to death, and there's no homicidal tendency on the part of Batman. So I mean, like, I don't know. I'm conflicted about it. I'm not saying that it was the best way to go about it. I'm just saying that to me, based on everything else that I know, which by comparison is limited, I admit. Just saying, I understand wanting to avoid those tropes, like the girl in the refrigerator thing. I'm just saying that the reason tropes exist is because that's how, in many ways, we think of sensible story writing. Like, oh, well, that makes sense, versus, oh, that doesn't make as much sense. I don't know.
I think the problem is I have read a lot of different Batman comics, so at least a lot of them that have featured Batman prominently. And, for instance, if you sit down and read Injustice, just the storyline Injustice should have broken Batman too.
Isn't that the one where he actually kills the Joker?
That's the one where Superman kills the Joker, but
I thought Bruce Wayne.
No. It's Superman. The whole premise is that...
No. I remember this specifically. Isn't it that the Joker was threatening Lois Lane? Or maybe this isn't Injustice. I don't know. Joker was gonna like kill Lois Lane, and I guess Superman's baby, and like Batman says Superman's like gonna do something, and then Batman's like, no, I'll take care of it, and he's driving him and not saying anything, and the Joker's taunting him a little bit, and then he just freaking breaks his neck and goes to jail.
I think that has to be a different continuity.
Oh, okay. I don't...
Because...
Someone remind me. I actually don't remember what comic this is, but it was like really... I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, no. What actually happens in Injustice is Harley and the Joker have this master plan where they put a nuke in the middle of Metropolis, and had Superman under the fear of it was a kryptonite toxic fuel dream that he had, where he saw Lois Lane, who was pregnant with his baby, and he was aware of that. He hallucinated her as Doomsday.
Oh.
And he basically just flew them out to space, and she died. And then when he finally came to, he realized he had killed Lois and the unborn baby because of Joker. And Bruce does tell Superman that he will take care of it, but of course the way Bruce wants to take care of it is put him in Arkham Asylum. And Supes just pushes him aside and literally tears his heart out of his chest with his bare hand.
And what are you gonna do about it, Bruce?
But the problem isn't just that. It literally cycles down through... Superman just goes down this spiral of... Oh my god, he kills so many people and so many people die. And then it becomes a literal, almost civil war in the DC universe. People who side with Superman deciding that people just need to die and that there's going to be a regime versus...
Yeah, wasn't that touched on in the newest movie? Like, he gets, like, a vision of that? Of the reality where he's, like, the ruler of Earth kind of thing? And Batman's, like, leading the resistance or
yeah,
something?
that really weird... See, that's my problem with Batman v Superman, was that whole Flash bringing back memories thing just made no sense in the continuity. I get that I get now that it wasn't a hallucination, it was Flash coming back to warn Bruce of what was coming.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot more sense if you've seen Flashpoint Paradox. It's like, oh, that's actually really cool. Too bad that we couldn't get that in the first viewing. All right, wow, we've gotten way off track here. So Batman Bad Blood, I mean, if you're a completionist, go for it. It's not exciting enough for you folks who are... Even if you're a fan of DC animated, it's not something you have to go out of your way to watch.
No.
Go watch the Wonder Woman movie from back in the day.
Yeah, I was going to say, go watch Flashpoint, The Killing Joke. Any of these other movies we've been talking about are so much more better than Bad Blood.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the final segment here of Duelists and Drunkards. Since we're out of October at the time of the publication here, we're going to be moving back into the regular That's Pretty Cool, and this one is going to be handled by Rockstar. Take it away, please.
All right. Well, for today's That's Pretty Cool, I'm going to be talking music, Disney, and Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan!
It's kind of a weird combination, but here's how they're connected. So, I don't know if if you're on the internet, you probably already know that there's a video of Jackie singing I'll Make a Man Out of You for Chinese release, which kind of makes sense when you realize that Jackie actually voiced General Li Sheng for the Cantonese and the Mandarin dub.
He's a captain, okay?
I think you're right. Yes, captain. And then...
They make a big deal of that. It's like, Captain? Me? Why, thanks, Dad!
Well then, you might know, maybe not, but you might know that Jackie also voices the Beast in the Mandarin dub for Beauty and the Beast, and actually sings the Beauty and the Beast song. He's actually got a really good singing voice. You really need to hear him sing on that song. It's really good.
What else does he sing?
Yeah, he actually has a whole discography. You see, when he was on top of his physical and acting skills, he actually went to go train operatically. From his time at the China Drama Academy, which specialized in Peking opera. So his discography ranges over 100 songs, and they're all sung in like 5 different languages. And he even won Best Foreign Singer in Japan in 1984. Yeah, I was surprised about that too. Jackie started singing a lot of the theme songs from his own movies. So if you ever go and see the soundtrack for some of his old movies, you'll notice that he's actually the one singing the theme song for them. And he even has an album for the Beijing 2000 Olympic Games because he actually performed live for the closing ceremonies. So that's something that I didn't know before. I follow Jackie's career prolifically. I watch even some of his really rare movies, and I'm not talking City Hunter.
City Hunter!
So if you haven't heard Jackie's amazing singing voice, go find it. There's an interview with him and some other guy, and they're singing, and he actually tells him, "You don't know your do-re-mi's." It's really funny. So go listen to him singing. It's really cool. He has a really good voice. But in closing, I think that's pretty cool.
I have this picture now of Jackie Chan singing the song that what's her name, Wu Ming or whatever her name was, the City Walk guy's a bride who was like an actual singer.
Mm-hmm.
I think she passed on finally, but yeah, so I'm picturing Jackie Chan singing, "You can dance, you can dance." God, find out if he sang that song. I want to hear him sing Dancing Queen now.
He actually sings Rolling in the Deep.
Oh my God, why?
He sings Adele's Rolling in the Deep. If you watch Skip Trace, he sings it in the movie.
Oh my God. Hey guys.
Fun fact.
That's pretty cool. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our time here at Duelists and Drunkards for the week. We hope that you enjoyed this episode and will continue to enjoy future episodes with us here on casual Friday evenings, unless we decide to change it again. We got some other exciting projects that are coming up. If you're a member of the Fleet Fan Lounge on Facebook, you'll probably get a preview pretty soon. But until then, remember that this is the podcast where there are not any duelists. But oh my word, are there drunkards, especially if we have to deal with any more LaCroix. Good night.
Bye-bye!